Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson,
I'm Carson Grubaugh. We're really sedate today after the excitement of last time.
coming to you from NPR Studios West, East, Mid-East. I have some headphones on today because I will have some guests in the room with me that I don't wish to interact with sonically. So
I'm
I will do my
beaming
best.
in from deep south. I don't think NPR has a deep south studio. No one down here would listen to that.
so,
Uh,
how you doing, Carson?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Uh,
I
uh,
hear you're on round 4 of the flu.
Yeah, it's been quite exciting. So people talk about the triple pandemic or whatever. So we've got the quadruple exposure here. So, but you keep on going and you hope that everything works out, and it seems to be fine so far. So
Well, you've sent your smallest petri dish off to engage with other petri dishes for the first time, and
that's
this is
exactly
just
right.
what happens.
It is. It's true, and especially if they've been mostly out of the petri dish prior to that, it
Yeah.
makes it tough. But
Well, and
keep
you're in an entirely new environment too. In the last year you've moved, so you're
it's
exposed to now those like Midwest viruses rather than San Diego.
right. And I think it's very fitting, given all of those things that we would be talking about, the comic that we're going to be talking about
I
today.
was just gonna say, speaking of petri dishes, we're gonna be looking at Yotsuba, which is my favorite book about a kid. I think this is the best book about children in my mind.
Yeah, it's really something else. A book that like embraces like kiddom. Um, I'm curious what your impressions are about it. So I just wanted to give a teeny bit of background about the book because I first saw Yotsuba because when I taught high school, the first volumes of this were coming out from the first American publisher that had it, and Azumanga Daioh, the first series done by the artist, was immensely popular among the anime kids
Mm,
because there had been an Azumanga Daioh series, and the anime series and the manga were passed around. It was one of those ones like frankly like Dragon Ball Z or something.
okay.
Weirdly enough, where one kid read it, and then all of a sudden, all 30 of the kids who would filter in and out of my class had read the same copies. Like they were just
Yeah.
like, "You guys seen Azumanga Daioh?" And
I've never even
so
heard of that one. What?
yeah, so that's the first series by Kiyohiko Azuma,
Okay,
and
cool.
it's a lot different in terms of the setting and the characters and everything, but the tone, I think, you can see and similar to Yotsuba, has a very very clean line style,
Okay.
and the sort of like hyper stylized. He's locked in a you know certain look, and then he's
Hmm.
able to express himself within that look. I think not that dissimilar in some ways to the work that we've talked about, the What's Michael
Yeah.
gentleman.
Yeah.
Um, Somebody who really, really knows how to express themselves within the skill set that they have. Um, and Yotsuba herself is such a delight. I think it's really easy to see why this held on so strongly, despite the fact that the market, when this first started coming out, whenever it was 2005 or six or whatever, was not as diversified as it is now. This was still a sort of outlier. This was one of a few manga that came out at the time that was like, genreless from an American perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I must have just been first exposed to it through scanlations.
Mhm.
Right. I think at some point I saw like a mega manga download and I just like downloaded it all and just weeded out anything that looked like shit and kept out everything that looked good. And this one, even though it has that really kind of cartoon, I don't want to say chibi, but like super cutesy cartoony style, like something about it was like the backgrounds and stuff. I was like, that just looks like it's probably good. And I kept it and read it. And then when we were in San Diego, we came across the Yotsuba,
Right.
this volume one, and it's like so cool that we got volume one. And you were like, "Oh, have you ever read this? Check it out." And I was like, "Oh, I've been wanting to talk to you about this forever, but I didn't know you thought about it." And I try not to like make you go buy stuff. Um, So it's like, oh, perfect. You know what this is? Like, hell yeah, I'll grab this. And it was what 50. It was at that Remark table, so it was
Yeah,
50% off. And
man, the two of us
now
at
I'm
that.
I'm gonna have to start buying all of them because I know I love this series. But I'm
Yeah.
really this was one that I've been wanting to talk to you about. I had no idea you knew about it, so
Well,
I'm
let's
pretty
take a look, and
excited.
especially because I think it has a huge amount to say in contrast to the sort of cutesy stuff that has come after or in its wake.
Yeah.
And there's a certain type of cutesy drawing that I just am utterly repulsed by, and it's amazing to me that he nails it.
Yeah, that's what I was
Really
saying is
nails
like
it.
for some reason in that gigantic slew of manga and where I was deleting all the stuff that looked crappy to me, this one stood out as like, normally I don't like that, but I look like I should give that a try.
Yeah,
And it panned out. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a
let's
look at
take a
it.
look.
So I mean, right from the cover, you can see what I'm talking about with that super cute style. Normally I'd be like, it's for kids, but it's the backgrounds, there's a real sense of place. And then even seeing the color work, you can tell this is a really sophisticated artist.
Right.
And I think that's what drew me in. And it's definitely what part of what keeps me in.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You see that face right there. There's a certain kind of illustrator that has defaulted to everybody having a smile all the time. I don't know when this happened or if it's an art director driven thing, but it drives me nuts when everybody's frozen in a smile all the time. And Yotsuba gets to have a full range of expression, as we're going to see as we're going through this. First thing. And of course, this would not be a slice of life manga if it did not start with someone moving to a new location.
Is that part of the genre? I've not read enough.
Well, I mean, it's part of several genres, I think, simultaneously. Um, so you see, like she gets this like pied-eyed look, but she's like almost manic about it. Just the extreme reaction.
Well, and I think that's what's so charming about it is it's not like a kid could very well enjoy this book, but an adult can very well enjoy this book or a teenager.
Yeah,
Like there's meat in it for everybody, but for the adult, it puts you back in that childlike sense of wonder. And she kind of becomes the avatar for you to inhabit. And then
right,
I think part of what really works for me is the drawings of the scenery are so realistic that I can move through the world like a kid again, and
right.
that's just so infectious. But yeah, everyone has a range of expression too. It's kind of like Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin always had those great facial expressions that brought you back to childhood.
Hmm.
And I think that's in this book as well. But anyways, story wise, you want to give us a summation here?
Yeah, well, I mean, essentially, the move acts as a vehicle for introducing us to who are going to be the main characters, Yotsuba and her dad, and their friend Jumbo, who arrives to help them move in, and a neighbor girl who they meet during the move-in process as well. And that by keeping the cast fairly small, they are able to. Uh, Let each story be a vehicle for some type of new thing for Yotsuba to explore and find out about.
Yeah, and it's that like each one is something for her to have that childlike wonder about, right?
Right,
So here's one of the next door neighbors, Ayase, and there's obviously right out the gate some kind of like charm in the next door neighbors. There's what, three sisters and a mother,
right.
a single mother, and then he's a single father with a younger daughter, and they're all kind of attractive and cute. And so he's kind of constantly getting drawn into that kind of stuff.
And
Here's one
and
of the other sisters, Ina.
the neighbors could almost be the cast from Azumanga Daioh, his
Okay.
previous series, and so you get an idea that this is a sort of like he's figured out a way to have an adjacent, relationship with his previous quite successful series.
Okay,
Uh,
I'll have to check that out because I love this so much, and if it's similar in tone, that
yeah,
would be great.
you
But yeah,
see, like,
this is the youngest daughter from next door, I think, and she sees like that because at this point in episode one, what Yotsuba's kind of wandered off, and they're looking for her, and she's thinking, "Oh, what a strange kid," um,
which is
and
funny
then
that they see her, yeah, because the dad is just like, oh well, I mean, she's not here, right?
yeah, no big deal. And then here they're trying to get her, and she thinks that it's one of the next door neighbors like, "Hey, come here, we've been looking for you. Help, I'm being kidnapped." So there's always something funny in the story. There's always something like sweet and heartening. There's always something that, like I said, is wonderful, filled with wonder. Here's Asagi. I think she's supposed to be the most attractive of the sisters that the dad probably has the crush on.
Right. This is why she gets the light screen tone for her hair.
Yeah, I know that's just supposed to show attraction.
Or
But
novelty, yeah.
here, Yotsuba's already met her. We skipped over that, and it's like, help, help, they're gonna kidnap me. And it's like, no, 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 that's my sister. The dad's name is Koiwai, I believe.
Koiwai, yeah, okay.
It's I'm bad with all the names, so I try and make notes of them. Yeah, he just says I'm Koiwai. So this is where he finally meets them all, and they realize they're neighbors and things like that. One of the things that I really like in this, as opposed to a lot of, and I think this is why it's accessible to adults as well as children, is the adults are real people. It's not the Charlie Brown thing where you're in the kids' world and adults are just like this world you can't even understand. It's an integrated thing like it is in the real world. And that gives drama for an adult to especially, I'm assuming a single parent would identify with a lot of the things that they're going through.
Right.
But it's seen through the kids' eyes, which is really great.
Yeah, and so you get the idea that things will progress, but this is essentially going to be like an episodic. You learn about something new each time, and in this one, we learn about basically like what it's like when it's hot in the summer, and like she loves her air condition. Like there's this images where she's just worshiping the air conditioner, but then when her dad tells her like, hey, this is causing global warming, we have to be conservative with how we use it. She's just like, no.
It freaks out. No one can use air conditioner. Everyone stop, we got to save the planet. I love this drawing of her, the mania.
Yeah,
like the absolute mania. And it reminds me, I don't know if you've ever read the series Gregory by Mark Hempo. It's about it's about a psychotic child who's like locked up in a padded room and is friends with a cockroach. And he has these moments of just absolute mania. And that kind of reminded me of that.
Oh man.
I love this sequence here. Where she's like talking this character. I forget which one of the sisters this is, but Fuka. She's talking Fuka into like pressing the doorbell button here, and Fuka doesn't realize that Yotsuba doesn't know whose house it is. She thinks she's trying to get in contact with someone in the house. And then they press it and the person comes out, and Yotsuba, like, this is the kid part. She's learning, right? And she's like, right. A person came out. And then Fuka realizes, like, wait a second, you've like conned me into just ringing on a random doorbell. And now we got to have this interaction with this person.
Which, as awkward as that is for us, you can imagine in a society where you have a public face and a private face of all times, how awkward that would possibly be to have to say hi to somebody purely for the reason that somebody else, some kid, is rung the doorbell.
Well, and the kid couldn't even reach it, so you were the one who rang the doorbell. Right. The kid, like, I think Yotsuba's not trying to con her into it. Again, it's Yotsuba's like really, I don't know if I would say guileless, because she is pretty sneaky or like smart about interacting with the world, but she's not trying to trick anyone into anything. It was just that pure, like, what does this do?
It was interesting to me that you brought up Calvin and Hobbes, because I think this is a similar kind of thing where essentially Calvin represents one aspect of the potential child and Yotsuba another. You could see Calvin as pure id, the id and egomania of childhood taken to the nth degree, and Yotsuba is essentially like the wonder and curiosity of childhood.
Yeah, without the deviousness of Calvin, right? He's like a trickster, and she's a little bit more earnest about it. I really love this composition here. This one really threw me for a loop at first, because it's almost like he could be looking up the building, but you can also see it as just like looking at properly, like he's standing and she's coming out the window horizontal. But there's something in that like gives me a sense of vertigo, which is appropriate for her trying to sneak out the window. And again, like that embarrassing situation of like catching someone like that, and like, what do I do with this? So you were talking about the episodic nature of this. One of the other things that really allowed me to lean into this series is, even though it is episodic, like you do kind of finish the story in each one, you pretty much always pick up, like, she ends falling asleep having made these drawings. And the third story, after we've had all of this stuff about the air conditioner, picks up right where we left off. And that pretty much happens in every episode. And they'll even
Right.
start in later volumes planning, like, hey, we're going to go look at cows. And then there will be these like storylines that develop and the interactions between the characters. And I just think that's amazing writing, to be able to nail start to finish episode. It's kind of like cartoons, right? You have to, like a comic strip in the paper, like each 3 or 4
Right.
panels have to make sense, but it also has to flow well one to the other. And that's just handled so masterfully in this book.
It's interesting. I remember there was a brief period of time in which this was sort of talked about along with some other series in a way that was suggestive, as if this was like some type of substitution for people who didn't have children or something.
That's
And there,
strange.
there was a vague suggestion that because of the original magazine that it appeared in, that it was somehow like exploitive, or you know that somehow it was unwholesome in some kind of way. And I have to say, I don't see any whiff of any of that at all.
No, this is like the most wholesome book I've ever read, without being like, normally if things are super wholesome, they also come across as like kitsch and corny.
Right.
And this has none of that. So it's purely wholesome, but no whiff of any kitsch, no whiff of, yeah, any bad motivations at all.
Right.
Yeah, no. And here's another good example of the continuation. Now we're in episode 3 and she's figured out how to ring the doorbells
Oh, right.
on her own, and now she's going and talking to the neighbors and getting them. And yeah, she does refer to her as the pretty sister. Asagi's the pretty sister.
Which does not negatively impact Asagi's view of her.
No. Absolutely not. I mean, it's one of those characters too. Like, how could you be anything other than endeared to this like wild kid next door who makes you see the world again and have some adventures?
Right.
And she's still on about the AC. This is where she learns about global warming, and she goes back and tells her dad she's learned about glow ball, like a ball that glows, global warming. That's one of those ones where you got to wonder how
Right.
hard that was to translate that gag, but it
Yeah.
works.
Well, yeah. Not only you have to feel for the translator here, you got to feel for the fact that they have to avoid using the exact translations of the first one of it. This is one of those books that was retranslated when it was re-released by the other company. I
I
can
didn't
only
know that.
imagine, yeah, having to solve these problems, 2 different times, 2 different people.
Yeah, this pun double entendre
Hmm.
thing. Yeah. I don't know if it, by the way, stop me. I just put notes. I don't know if you have
No, this
any
is great.
specific scenes that you wanted to cover.
No, I mean, this is one of those books where I kind of feel like the majority of the discussion is just like, well, you haven't seen this, you go get this.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
really. And it just, I think that's a lot of the stuff I tagged is like, here's the first time that Jumbo meets Fuka and they get
Right.
into this like, hi and it's just that ramping up of that energy that's represented. Again,
Right.
the mania is so good. um this is another one where it's really just shows me the way a kid processes the world.
Right.
It's like, look at all this stuff, and then the way that they're processing it is like, what can I do with it?
Yeah.
Not what is supposed to be done with it,
Oh no.
but like what can be done with it. And that's a real great hint for creatives, right? Don't lose
Yeah.
that. Like, not everything needs to be used the way it's supposed to be used.
Right. And I see my kids having stayed home for the past couple days. I mean, I see that myself. It's like the thing that is the most delightful thing I can do is like pull out like a box full of pipe cleaners that they haven't seen before.
Yeah,
Or like a mic stand that's broken in such a way that it can be a gun or something. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like they're like, oh, look at this new thing, a cardboard box that like I say they can cut.
yeah. And that's I've often, I mean, obviously I don't have kids, I don't want kids, but I've often thought that that's one of the greatest benefits of having a kid is as you get an adult, society puts all these pressures on you where like don't skip. If you saw an adult skipping down the road, you'd think
Right.
they're fucking nuts. But if they do it with a kid, then all of a sudden it's okay again. And like just that permission that having a kid with you gives you to
Right.
re-enter that state is great.
Absolutely.
Here's one of those images where I think probably while I was like just flipping through what's this manga about, you see this kind of thing, and if it was only that, I would have probably skipped it. But when you get images like this, it's like, okay, there's a lot of craft going on in this, and this should be paid attention to. Another note that I made is this strikes me, some of that continuous flow of it strikes me as like peak Seinfeld, where it is episodic, but there are those like that style of writing that's both inside the Larry David style of writing that's both in Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm. Hey kiddo. uh that this has that structure as well that allows it to carry over from episode to episode, because she's coming back again to the global warming, and she's still worried about turning on the AC even in a much later episode. I don't remember why I put that note there. Another one I really like, this is dad coming in. Sean, you need to try this. Boxer Man.
That is a peak parenting strategy right there, is all of a sudden devolving into the most ridiculous thing possible.
Yeah. I want video that we can splice in at the end of this video. And then here there's the suggestion that Yotsuba is potentially an orphan. And I don't remember. I don't know if you remember from going further in if she is an orphan or not.
Hello.
Or hello.
I don't remember, in fact, and I don't know if I read far enough to really have a clear idea, but I always thought that there was a possibility that she's a space alien, or is being, that was the sort of pet theory of the anime kids that I taught, was that Yotsuba was like an orphan in a galactic sense, which
Interesting.
I'm grateful for them not exploring that particular possibility.
Yeah, I don't see anything in any of my memories of reading this that suggests she's anything other than a normal kid. This is the perfect episode to have your kids in the room slapping your face as we talk about a book. Okay, is that Rowan there?
Yeah, this is Rowan.
Yeah, Rowan can't hear us though. Hi, Rowan.
No. Carson's saying hi to you, Rowan. You want to say hi?
Hi.
How's your tummy?
How's your tummy feeling?
Apparently, I can't hear you.
Apparently, he can't hear you.
Well, that sounds like a stomach problem for sure. I think we probably have to edit that out because we're not supposed to have kids in the video or something.
Oh, really? Why?
I don't know. There's a little thing where you have to check if you've got to check a box. I've wondered about the ending with Jack too. I don't know.
Interesting. I had no idea.
We'll throw it up and see what happens. Speaking of flu, we'll throw it up.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's a ton. I don't know if there's a ton to say about
No.
Yotsuba, other than it's really peak.
Other than that, it's like a completely charming book that if you haven't read or you've looked at it and you thought it looks a bit childish, like put that aside and know that it's like really, really great comics, really enjoyable for adults and kids. We're avoiding children climbing.
Yeah, and as you said in the thing, I think that the fact that I called it episodic is not necessarily like a indicative of the entire thing. And like there's certain kinds of recurring objects that become characters. I wanted to mention the first thing that I ever saw was not Yotsuba, although I had a kid who I was teaching a cartooning like workshop to, like a independent study, who could draw Yotsuba perfectly. But the other thing that they ended up doing is the box that she makes at one point with the face on it. The kids built this box, and that was the first exposure I ever had to Yotsuba, was like a box with a face on it that they were like obsessed with. Like they physically made this giant, giant recreation of a box character from Yotsuba, you know,
and brought it into the real world, right? Like
right.
that makes it extra fun. It becomes interactive, and I think it's suggestive of that because it is so grounded in the real world. There's no fantasy or science fiction in it at all. That it's like you could go have all of these same adventures, and probably as a parent, like not only would you enjoy reading and your kid enjoy reading, it'll probably give you a lot of ideas of like stuff to go do with your kid, you know. So I just think it's the highest quality stuff, and
Yeah,
really wanted to talk about it.
yeah, it's really fantastic, and you know, I hope that people will check it out, and also, you know, chime in the comments if you have something else to add to the discussion. Is Yotsuba a space alien? Is that is her 4 ponytails indicative of some type of you know, biological process that she doesn't share with the rest of humanity?
Was that your student's supposition about this? I would have never gone there, but okay, cool. Yeah,
and I remember hearing a long discussion between 2 people who were supposed to be working on their comics. One who was saying she was a space alien, the other was saying that it's a 4-leaf clover. Yotsuba has green hair and has 4 ponytails because she's lucky. It's a 4-leaf clover. I was like, oh, okay.
Man, they really got into that. Okay, I would have not gone that deep. Good for them. You had good students.
I did. It was a fantastic group. You know, I made the well, I don't know if it's a mistake or not. I let people come into my room during lunch, so I ended up having kids who wanted to draw during lunch, and also kids who wanted to talk about anime during lunch. And so as a result, I kind of got inundated with, you know, everything that was popular at the time, both like popular in a global sense and also popular in like a very macro, like things that they pass back and forth. And so I was the beneficiary of a lot of the stuff. And Yotsuba was definitely one of the ones that I was like, oh yeah, I see what you guys are getting into there, you know.
And that's why you let kids come in during lunch, because it becomes home and family, right? And that's
true.
The best thing. Yeah.
And that is the tremendous benefit, definitely on an individual basis to that. Even if sometimes I wish that I had slightly more of a break. I might be feeling that way right now as well. So perhaps we should wrap it up.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for following along. Thanks for the extra chaos of the wonder of children.
Have a good one, everybody.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.